Alright, so here it is. Part 5 of What If Female Deku was a Space Marine Tyranid hybrid. So I believe where we last left off, we were just about to commence the villain attack on the USJ. Actually, we're on the villain attack of the USJ, so let's get to that. But a little recap for those of you who have forgotten, because I wanted to try and do a recap. Essentially, we went over the heroes versus villains battle with Hizumi, and I believe I had her with Shoto, I believe? I do not remember. I'm sorry. I haven't done this in a while. As her team had achieved victory, as the rest of Class 1A would arrive at the USG, as Kirishima would point out that there were villains on the area. Now let us continue. Now, I did get a video on the different types of bolters, but I think I do think that she'll just primarily use the normal bolter. So, that's going to be the weapon she'll be using. As Aizawa would then leap down and begin to fight with the villains, as I forgot her name, give me a minute. Lelith, there we go. As Lelith would load up her heavy bolter, her bolter, as she would then begin to open fire on any villains that were making an advance up the stairs. As Shigaraki would notice this, as he'd say to himself, so that is the creature that came from Island a while ago. Kurogiri, warp her over here, as he points to Lelith. As Kurogiri would say, yes, Shigaraki. As Lelith is too busy focusing on... No, she is focusing on the villains, as she would feel like her feet aren't touching anything, as she would notice that she's falling through a portal. And using her enhanced reflexes, she basically manages to grab on to the side of the portal and then pull herself out of it, as she'd continue opening fire while simultaneously dodging all the portals. And a lot of Class 1A who are watching this are impressed with her capabilities, as eventually it would get to the point where Lelith would slip up, as she would then fall into a portal and then be grabbed by the Nomu, as Shigaraki would be holding her hostage, as Aizawa is currently beating all the villains. As once all the villains have been beaten, Shigaraki yelled at Aizawa to not come any closer, as he has 4 fingers down on Lelith's throat, as he'd say, or else she dies. With Lelith thinking to herself, okay, come on, you're half of a creature that was biogenetically engineered to basically adapt to your environment. Just adapt. As she'd remember, oh yeah, I have these. As she'd remember that she has these spikes, which she would rotate around and use them to stab out the Nomu's eyes, which would cause the Nomu to let her go, as she would basically pry Shigaraki's hand off her throat. As she'd So if you guys seen the first Avengers movie, and that scene where Hulk was smashing Loki all over the place, yeah, she's basically doing that to Shigaraki, as she then throws him into the Nomu. Now, Lelith does still have the Nomu's eyes on her spikes, as she would pluck one of the eyes off and just pop in her mouth and swallow it. As from this, she would gain about a quarter of the Nomu's regeneration, super strength, and shock absorption. As she would crack her neck, as she would say, well, why don't we test these new abilities out? As she would immediately dash towards the Nomu, as she would punch the Nomu, as it would move slightly. As Shigaraki would be surprised by this, as not that many people have been able to, nobody has been able to move the Nomu. In fact, this thing was made to kill All Might. With Lal's basically fighting this Nomu by flipping over it, shooting it with the bolter when necessary, when the opening comes. As eventually she would run out of blanks, as she would then think to herself, screw it. As she would say to herself that this thing isn't alive, so it's not really killing it if I use real bullets. As she would then load actual bullets into the her gun, where she would then begin her bolter, as she would then begin opening fire. Due to the size of the bolter bullets, hold on, I'll actually get an image of a bolter bullet so you guys can understand how big these things are. Yeah, the one that says the 998 pistol. Yeah, that's the one she has loaded into her gun. So those things are massive. Here's it compared to like a not bullet you'd find in real life. These things are massive. So imagine having those hit you. It'd turn you into Swiss cheese. Anyway, while she's firing into the Nomu, she's constantly dodging and evading it, as eventually she would have the Nomu pinned down, as she would think, the quirks from this thing might come in handy. Well, bottoms up, as she would then begin to devour the Nomu. And everybody's seeing this, and they're actually absolutely terrified at this, as the Nomu is basically like struggling, trying to get her off. As a couple of minutes later, the Nomu would have been completely devoured. Like, not even bones remain of it. As Laos would basically lick her lips clean of the blood. As Shigaraki would then begin to scratch his neck, saying, no, you cheated. As Shigaraki would then dash towards her, screaming, you cheated! With Laos pulling out her bolter and firing, basically sending a 998 right through Shigaraki's hand. As she would basically be shooting Shigaraki in the same areas that Snipe would shot Shigaraki, as the League of Villains then retreats, with Laos being exhausted by this, as she would basically pass out, with All Might crashing through the door, as he would yell, I fear, there's nothing to fear. Why? Because I am here. As you would see what happened in the area, along with an unconscious Lilith, as he would ask what had happened here, with everybody basically explaining what happened, including the villains attacking, Lilith and Aizawa fighting off the villains, and Lilith even eating the Nomu. As the police would arrive at the station, as due to Lilith being unconscious, she would be sent to the hospital. As All Might would make a call to David Shield and Melissa Shield, as All Might would tell them what happened with Lilith, with the whole thing about her eating the Nomu and that she was found unconscious, with David and Melissa saying that they will be right over in Japan, as they begin to get all the equipment they'd used that had helped Lilith whenever she was injured or something bad had happened to her, as they would then immediately head towards Japan. And that is where I'm going to end this part off. I do hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'm sorry if it isn't as long as the other parts. I have not really thought this through on how the story should go for this part, but I do hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time.